Welcome to the LiveCast Conversations With. On this show, my guests and I explore the bumps and triumphs of their journey to extract the gems from their experiences, because success leaves clues, and today we turn those clues into billboards for you. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, founder of Pealed Back, speaker and co-active coach, guiding leaders to ruthlessly pursue a life worth living. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 99 of the LiveCast Conversations With. Today my guest is Milena Regos. She is the founder of Unhustle, living at the intersection of intentional living and effortless work. An ex-award-winning marketer, she experienced firsthand how hustle and the always-on mentality can impact overall well-being and success. She's on a mission to create a counterculture movement to replace burnout hustle culture with human culture and inspire conscious leaders to create sustainable life, work, play, and design. She hosts the Unhustle Podcast and lives in Baja while working on her new book that's coming out. Milena, thank you so much for being on episode 99.
Thank you, Jane. The episode 99 is the best episode. That's a lot of episodes you've done so far. Congrats.
It's been a few. We got number 100 already locked up and loaded for next week. It's going to be a huge milestone. So thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Lots of learning, lots of conversations. So let's get into it. Working through this Unhustle, going from an award-winning marketer, where was that? I guess, tell us the story about that going from the always-on culture, from being this in the marketing role, been there, done that, and I know that it's always on, to living a life in Baja, writing a book about unhustle, and sharing the idea of what it means to unhustle one's life.
So I don't know where you want me to start with that. I mean, I ran an eight-figure marketing agency, which I know a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I want to be there's this whole thing of I want to be a 6-figure, 7-figure, an 8-figure entrepreneur. So for those in the know, I ran an eight-figure marketing agency after a decade of working as a marketing director for a ski resort, right? And who quits being a marketing director for a ski resort to start their own business? So I did. And also a first-generation immigrant, it comes with the extra pressure to perform. And I chased that material success. I fell for that kind of lie, the hustle culture lie that, the harder you work, the more successful you're going to be. And to a point, it worked well for me. I mean, I had great, I wouldn't say I'm filthy rich by any means, but I had a decent lifestyle. I was able to, have a little house in Lake Tahoe and bought a little mini, fast car and, had the trendy clothes and all of this was great. But I realized that, I was living to work, now working to live. Some of my clients were celebrities, and I love my work and I was very passionate about what I was doing. It put me in that creative field, but I realized that I'm sacrificing my health, my friendships, my marriage, my fun and seeking that kind of external validation all the time instead of the internal connection. At some point in time, I realized that success on the outside doesn't necessarily mean success on the inside. So we decided to plan a trip to Baja, California, where I am right now, to this beautiful little place, which turned out to be a 10-day digital detox trip by default, not by design, because there was no internet in town. I couldn't connect. So I went out learning to kiteboard, replacing one dopamine with another, which is actually very key in this whole Unhustle framework.
Yeah.
And I decided to reconnect with my values. My values are for more freedom, for creativity, for well-being. So I went down this path of doing a lot of research. I studied with the Human Potential Academy, mindfulness, positive psychology, the science of well-being, neuroscience, biohacking, spirituality, flow state, peak performance, and all of these things. There was a lot of knowledge and wisdom in all of these pieces. Right. At some point in time, I realized there's a really key ingredient missing, and that is that no one is teaching high performance and leaders how to fix their leisure time. And I can get into this in more detail, but basically, on hustle, obviously, to a lot of people, it means slowing down, being more intentional, making space for what matters, focusing on what's essential, right? All of these things are key ingredients to the hustle movement, but there's also a little key piece missing ingredient in there, and that we say the way we work is broken and the way we're living is broken, but our leisure time is broken too. And I can go deeper into that if you want me to, or we can talk about something else.
No, that's why we're here. Is I think as we were talking before the show, working with leaders myself, is like they feel like they always need to be on that go to perform and to have that success, right? Like you had an 8-figure marketing business. That's no small chunk of like that external success from a business standpoint. Highly successful, but it sounds like you kind of lost connections with what it meant to be you at that deeper level.
Well, you lose connection with yourself. You lose connection with, you lose your creativity. You lose your fun, and you lose your energy. And if you can't sustain your energy, right, eventually you end up burnout. That's why like 77 of 77, I think it's 77% of people are burnout. Worse for women at the moment. There's just this huge, pandemic of burnout, of mental health, of stress, of wellness crisis, all of these things, right? Adding up. A lot of it was the pandemic. Now, I started on Hustle before the pandemic. I honestly sat there and watched how millions of people woke up to the principles of Unhustle in front of me, right? Yeah. I mean, I paralyzed, I froze. I was like, oh, it's happening. It's all happening. Like everything I've been talking about leading up to the pandemic. Because before that, people were like, yeah, whatever, right? And all of a sudden, there was a huge awakening, so to speak. I mean, we had to slow down on purpose, right? Now, we also had this pandemic brain. Now, think about this. When we were in lockdown, meaning we were working from our homes, we worked an average of 3 extra hours every day.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have to.
No one was forcing it. Well, and I think
probably. I mean, I would say maybe some companies were requiring extra meetings, right? I would probably, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, but we felt safe. It's a safe place for our brains, right? Because it's a place where we felt that we're in control. And so, I forget where I was going with that, but basically, a lot of it comes down to neuroscience and understanding how your brain works, right? And I don't know how much you're familiar with flow state. Do you understand flow state?
Yeah, to an extent. That's like where everything is moving really well, and your energy and your motivations are all connected, and you're getting a lot of productivity done in those states.
Well, see, there's a problem with pushing flow into productivity. I mean, flow results in productivity, but flow is more like where high performers, where like athletes, when they feel in the zone. Like if you feel in the zone, you're fully present, you're fully engaged with what you're doing. So think creatives, musicians, athletes who are they're just in the zone. They're like doing what they're doing for the sake of doing it, right? And they forget about everything else. Now, here's an interesting statistics. Flow actually makes us feel really good. And so being in a flow state, besides that, you can get more done because you're fully focused on what you're doing.
Right.
It just feels good. It increases your well-being. There's a fulfillment element from it. You can be in flow working, or you can be in flow gardening, or you can be in flow reading, or you can be in flow talking with somebody, right? Different aspects of flow. Now, here's something interesting that I find fascinating. So even though most people say they'd rather not be working and be at leisure, when we're at work, we feel challenged, we feel creative, we feel motivated, we're driven, we feel good. And so the research by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who came up with the concept of flow, shows that 64% of the time while we're working, we're actually in flow. At the same time, in leisure time, we're only in flow about 20% of the time because we're running errands, we're dealing with the kids, we're chasing the dog around, and so we're not really doing things that are challenging and push us to our limits.
Right. I was
Now,
just about to ask if the correlation there was the lack of the challenge
the lack of the
within it.
challenge. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
And
is there an extreme then to the challenge? Is there like too much challenge that can show up is it, let me rephrase that question. Is there is there a is there an ideal amount of challenge that kind of hits that sweet spot where you're like, oh, this is just a little bit beyond my comfort zone, and it just kind of pulls you to it, versus like too much or too, what we've already identified, too little takes you out of it. Does too much also have that same effect?
yeah, completely. So if you want the exact answer, it's 4%. But I mean, how are you gonna come up with 4% exactly, right? That's a little harder to do. But if you too challenged, if I want to go out and learn how to kiteboard and I'm just barely surviving for my life, right?
Yeah.
Then it's too challenging. It's overwhelming. It's stressful. I'm like, I don't want to do this. If it's too boring, then you gravitate more towards the boredom area. So it's a really fine line between too much challenge and not enough challenge.
Right.
So anyway, what I discovered is, and actually a lot of successful people have already known this, but now I can back it up with the work of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, as well as Abraham Maslow, who talks about peak experiences.
Right.
And peak experiences is when you feel whole, you feel connected, you feel fulfilled, you feel at ease, and you feel joy and all these things. So that's kind of really what we're chasing. But we're stuck in this constant loop of distractions and constant loop of too much work and constant loop of overwhelming information coming our way. And so it's really hard to step away from that and to say, oh, I'm going to be in flow today, right? But really, that's what we're craving. And that's what happened during the pandemic. People were like gravitating towards work because it's like, just leave me alone. I just want to be, just want to be doing my work because you feel better.
Yeah, there's
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Like, and it when you're feeling in that flow and you get that sense of like, I'm good at something and I'm hitting this challenge, and I'm, probably in a sense, my words here is like, you feel like maybe you're serving your purpose a little bit, like your life has purpose when you're hitting that, versus running around doing the errands and all the other little distractionable pieces that do break you from that state of flow, right? Like, there's nothing. Personally, I find it. I get super frustrated if I'm like in that flow, and then those like little meaningless distractions pop up. You're like, I was just there. What's going on?
Right. Yeah. So that kicks you out. So yeah, I mean, the idea is not to do this on a day-to-day basis, but the idea is to have some of these experiences on a fairly frequent basis.
Right. So setting yourself. What I hear from in this is there's a way of setting yourself up for that.
Well, it's a way of fixing your leisure time. So instead of just watching Netflix all weekend long, see if you can do something for a couple of hours that pushes you, maybe it's your imagination, maybe it's your body, maybe it's your challenges from a perspective of physical,
right,
or intellectual. Maybe you want to learn a new language, or maybe you want to play chess, or maybe you want to, I went freediving last weekend and I had a blast, 3 hours, but I'm still from that high, from that weekend, that's kind of giving me the energy to kind of power through it, everything else. Now, the thing about this challenging leisure time is that it will actually help you mentally detach from work. And that was my issue when I was struggling with burnout and how to stop thinking about work. And I was doing a lot of yoga, I was doing a lot of mindfulness, I was doing a lot of meditation. Technically, none of that helped because I kept thinking about work. And I think that's the biggest issue for burnout, is we can't mentally detach from work. It's following us around, right? We're walking around with our work in our pockets and constantly working, right? So if you find something challenging, then you can mentally detach from work. And I think that's a really good way to prevent burnout and to heal burnout, depending on the kind of burnout you have.
Right. So being able to have those things that you can go to, be in state of that flow and enjoy it, and they have no connection to work. It's almost like creates like a shield around it to give you that space to be like, I'm not chasing an email right now. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even before you get into flow, because flow, I think flow is flow could be challenging on the brain, right? So I'm just saying, have fun. I'm just saying, play more. Excuse me. Yeah, play more.
Right.
Play
So
more. The
the
right amount of play.
The right amount of play. So what's the prescription for play? Let's pretend that I'm a workaholic and I'm struggling to bring real play into my life that is not a distraction like a Netflix or anything, because I'm asking for a friend. I'm the friend.
So what do you like to do?
Well, for my example, what do I like to do? I like playing video games. I like going out on my bike. I like doing my show. This doesn't feel like work. This is
work
every
can be
week.
Play and play can be work.
I get to play and have an excellent conversation with people. So how would somebody start to identify if they've been disconnected from that state of play and state of fun? How do they start to bring that into their life?
So we go back to what did you used to do as a kid, right? And kind of dive deeper into some of the activities and the hobbies that you used to do when you were young.
Right.
And then how does that align with your values currently and what you currently believe in? So does anything kind of stand up for you?
Oh, for me, like as soon as you ask that, I'm like, oh, I used to love. Like I would spend hours playing with Lego, just building all kinds of things. We'd do smash up derbies with them, build the replicas of my dad's trucking companies with them, and like we just build all kinds of stuff. Like that was predetermined sets. It was just blocks, and you'd use your imagination to go build something cool.
You know what's cool about that? The Lego's tagline is serious play.
So it's built right in.
So it's built right in. So when was the last time you played with Lego?
Oh, I think it's been a couple years. My kids don't even play with the Lego anymore. They've like grown out of it, but I'd play with it with them every once in a while. But yeah, I think there's like a Lego box somewhere down below my desk that needs to maybe be explored again.
Maybe. So when you gonna do it?
Maybe I'll play with some Legos tonight.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
And I can involve my
see
kids.
how that works. Involve the kids, and maybe that's your activity. That from now on, it's like when you wanna just not think about anything else, you just grab the Legos and have some fun with it.
Yes, I love that. And it's a practical step for anybody that's listening today, is to be like, go fish back in the pond of your youth to find out, hey, what were those things that you would love doing? Was it riding your bike? Was it playing Lego? Was it playing maybe a sport? Is like, go find those and you can bring those back into your world.
Yeah, we need to play more.
Yeah. Was that realization, that this idea of play more, is this something that evolved, or was this like the first kind of aha from your 10-day digital detox when you went on that fateful vacation?
Well, I experienced it, right? I experienced the mentally detaching from work and waking up and realizing there's more to life than work, because work was my life. To be honest with you, I went down this journey I told you of studying all these amazing things to finally do a full circle and get grounded in this research and say, you know what, this is it. Because for me to tell high performance and leaders to slow down, exactly, everybody laughs.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, yeah, that's that thing I can do when I retire.
I will. It's like telling cheetahs to slow down. Just don't run as fast. So they need something to replace one dopamine with another dopamine, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, it's a good way for them to mentally detach from work, heal burnout, have more fun, increase their well-being, have more joy, because it brings you back to what you love to do, increase your creativity, and flow feels more flow. So you can implement the same strategies at work, so you can become more productive, you can become more creative, right? All these things that you brought up front. But now you understand the logic as to why play more brings more fun and effortlessness at work as well.
And I think that fun, that word is very meaningful. I think people, this is broad strokes, and I used to live this as well when I ran my own company. Is like fun was that thing that you would do later. Fun wasn't part of it. Be like, you didn't go to work to have fun, and at that time we weren't having fun. But like at one point it was fun, and that's like why we got started doing the things that we do, right? And I think there's a powerful message within there is like fun needs to be along on that journey, the whole journey, because it's a whole lot easier to get up and put your feet on the ground and be excited about your day if you're like, how are me and fun going to get along today?
Yeah, and no, I mean, fun is a key component to play. Is actually one of the ways to cure burnout, right? And fun is play, and play is fun. Yeah. But I start my days with taking 30 minutes for me. I call it the Unhustle morning rituals, and there I call it the sunrise method, right? And so it's taking rituals at the beginning of the day with 30 minutes for me that are kind of rituals to make sure I'm going to start my day with calm, with focus, with clarity. Some of these rituals include fun, like reading or writing, right? And I kind of mix and match. I don't necessarily have a specific certain routine about it, but it's having that time for you, waking up in the morning and saying, I'm going to start my day with having that time for me. What makes, you wake up feeling just so much better, really, when you start the day, as opposed to just going, check the emails and let's go, right?
Yeah. You get to have that slow roll of that controlled experience in the morning, right? Versus hitting it and being like reactive mode instantly. And that's why, a lot of experts say don't keep your phone in your room and all these other things, is to be able to have that buffer between when are you going to have that work reactivity to being able to be like, hey, I'm going to read, maybe I'm going to exercise, I'm going to do my meditation or whatever fills in your daily morning ritual that actually fills your soul. Be like, oh, if I've done these, I've done the most important parts for the day already.
Yeah, you've taken care of the most important asset, yourself. And then after that, it's like, okay, let's focus on 3 things for the day and let's get them done, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we, Gene, I feel like part of me feels like we're so on auto repeat mode with everything we hear, with everything we read, that we don't really make the space to just be, to allow ourselves to have that freedom and time to think, to be, to reflect, to like get settled into what's really important for us. We can talk about play and fun all day long, but I mean, life goes on, right?
Yeah.
And if anything we learned from this pandemic is like, what's the most important? We're mortal. We're gonna die one day. So what's the most important thing? And we just take ourselves too seriously sometimes.
Yeah.
We think we're gonna change the world, and some of us are, and some of us maybe are not, and maybe that's okay. You're still a human being, right? Yeah. Not everybody needs to be Elon Musk. I mean,
well, and not everybody can be, and
it's probably a good thing.
Probably, and then it wouldn't be so unique. But like, I think I like that idea where you're going about like people live on that autopilot, right? Like things just kind of happen Monday to Friday, boom, at weekends, lather, rinse, repeat, and they're like, oh, where'd my time all go? They bring some awareness to what's happening in each of those days. And it can start with just that little bit, that piece in the morning and that piece at night, right? That thinking, that being, that reflection. That's head, heart, body, mind, and soul all starting to come together to be like, what is really here?
Self-awareness, it comes down to everything in this piece. I mean, if you look at flow, if you look at peak experience, if you look at it, all of it comes down to, mindfulness and being present, being in the moment. And you even brought it up, like the experts say, leave your phone out of the bed. And I'm like, well, let's take this apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we really need someone to tell us this? And even if I bring my phone in the bedroom for one, it's not the healthiest thing you can do, right? Because if you look at EMF, whatever,
Yeah.
you probably shouldn't sleep next to your phone. Although, based on my research, 87% of people sleep with their phones next to their beds, and we touch our phones 2,547 times a day. I mean,
Oh, wow.
we're just rather addicted to our little devices. So having self-awareness to just even know that, right? And I understand social media is addictive and your phone's addictive and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things you can do to make your phone less addictive, because I was in that space, so I understand how much social media can be addictive, and I was still addicted to it. So I totally get how hard it is. But regaining control of your brain and understanding how your brain works and what's addicting, what's not addicting, like you said, you're working on something and then you get a distraction from something, right? So just being aware of that, acknowledging it, and then seeing if maybe that won't happen again. Because the minute you get out of your deep focus state, it takes probably 23 minutes to get back into it, I want to say, based on my research, right? So self-awareness, and being your own damn guru as opposed to constantly listening to what everybody else is saying.
Well, and I think that in itself, that you touched on it earlier in this conversation, is like that overwhelm of information, right? Even this conversation might be an overwhelm for some, right? Is there's so much, we have access to so much, and it's really hard to actually pull it all together sometimes and be like, what's the implementable piece from this? What's the insight and the wisdom as well? What is my barrier to say, I'm done absorbing for a little bit. I need just to like process, and I need to be with this and experience it before I go to just screaming for more.
I would challenge everybody who's listening to this right now to take 5 minutes, set a time on your phone, and see if you can do nothing for 5 minutes. It's the most challenging thing ever. It's so challenging. 5 minutes, it's like nothing, right?
Yeah, and it goes by super quickly. But when you're focused on that 5 minutes, it's like that can feel like a lifetime. That's an interesting reaction I had within me when you said that. It's just like, oh, 5 minutes of nothing. Be like, oh, I think I'm gonna have to sit with that and explore that a little bit. Not even having the Calm app on. Just what's 5 minutes of nothing?
Nothing, right? Without the urge to like, oh, I gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, right? Gotta go, do, right?
Yeah.
So, and then again, if we're to end that cult of productivity, which is what I'm trying to do, and then that cult of constantly doing, that leaves the being, right? So how do we go from that mindless doing? Some of it's mindless, some of it's meaningful, but mindless doing to mindful being, so that we can feel more focused, have more fun, increase our well-being, stop, being the burnout, stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious people that we are. I mean, a lot of it's coming from technology. A lot of it is coming about from our choices, right? What we choose to consume, what we choose to read, what we choose to watch, what we choose to do, what we choose to occupy our brains with. I've been out of Instagram for a while, and I'm launching a new program right now. So I went on Instagram yesterday, and I was like things flying at me from all over the place, and all kinds of messages, and buy this and buy this and look at this and look at that. And you can just get lost in the advice and content out there. So at the end of the day, all I'm saying is the wisdom and the answers that you seek are already inside of you, but you need to make time and space to find them. We spend way too much time in our heads, not enough in our bodies. And so this whole concept for just being, and if you have to do something, then replace it with real play, like you called it.
Right. Like I hear that replacing those got tos, I shoulds, and everything along those lines. And how do you bring the play within this? Because some of those things have to get done. So knowing that they have to get done, can there still be a benefit of play and built into those like to-do lists?
A lot of things have to get done, but not all of them have to get done today. Not all of them have to get done tomorrow. Not all of them have to get done by you, right? Not all. A lot of, thanks to technology and leverage, you can have someone else do a lot of these things, and it doesn't have to be you. If you're a leader and you have a team, same thing. I mean, you can delegate to somebody else. You don't have to do everything. We think we're really important and we're irreplaceable, right? And so we have to do everything, but we really don't. The most important job of a leader is to make space to think and to strategize. Even Warren Buffett agrees with that. Busy is the new stupid. So while we're busying ourselves, we can't see the big picture. So we really need to zoom out. We need a 30,000 feet view from the plane to say, where is the plane heading, instead of being in the engine room fixing things. Have the mechanics fix the engine while you fly the plane.
Yeah, I agree with that. So from there, what is your definition of the leader living that unhustled life?
What is my definition of the leader? A modern day pirate reclaiming his or her life well-being and joy so that he or she can create sustainable success without sacrifices. And success is going to be a different definition for everybody. For me, success is living in a place I love, surrounded by people I love, doing what I love, contributing to society in a meaningful and impactful way while having a ton of fun. But it's not necessarily the definition of success I started with, years back. So I think the question is, make 5 minutes while you're doing nothing and come up with your definition of success.
Oh, that's a great thing to sit there and just let the answers flow out of you.
Now I still gave them something to do, right? It's still not doing anything. It's really hard to do nothing. It's really hard for us to do nothing. Really hard.
Yeah, it totally is for anybody that's ever attempted to do meditation and am I doing it right? Be like, the stream of thoughts are always going to be there, and it's an opportunity to just bring that awareness to it, right? And even with that invitation to ask about what does success mean for you, ask it and then be quiet, right?
The answers are already inside of you.
Like you said earlier, the answers are already there and they will flow up, and you'll start to see that. And I think the other piece for people to take away here as well is you shared that you had a different definition of success before when you were running your company and stuff from what it is now. For that piece is it's never written in stone. It is a thing that can evolve and change as you learn more and adapt more, to be open to the idea that change is critical to being able to have this play as well. I think be interesting to understand the relationship between change and play.
Change is the only thing that's constant, right? And change is the only thing we can count on. So change is going to happen. What I'm thinking today is probably going to be different from what I'm thinking 10 years from now. However, designing a life in flow, which is what I call high flow living and working, designing a life in high flow living and working with peak experiences, to me means stepping into your full potential, right? So being on that journey of stepping into your full human potential, by definition, means you're just getting onto the journey and you're expanding your consciousness and your human potential and your self-awareness. But it doesn't mean you're going to reach a plateau. I mean, I haven't achieved Zen status of anything or guru status of anything. I'm just on that journey, right? Yeah. Now, currently, I live on a street with no street name. I walk barefoot. I have zero distractions. There's very few people around me. And so I'm on a very different... I was sitting with a Reiki master a couple of days ago, and we were just sitting there watching the birds and listening to the wind and observing nature, and no one was saying a word for a really long time. And it felt completely natural. Yeah. And I went to her with a quest to kind of gain some clarity on something, which is really funny because I actually offer the space for people to find clarity in what they seek. It always comes down to the same thing, right? And the answer you seek is already inside of you. And yeah, we just sat there and we finally looked at each other and we said, it's just, that's what it is. It's just being. And we just don't make time for that, just to be. We're constantly doing, and obviously what we're doing isn't working. I mean, I'm frustrated with seeing the statistics, and I quietly, to be honest with you, I think things are going to get worse before they get better. Our mental health challenges, anxiety, overwhelm, stress, depression, all these things, especially after the pandemic, especially with the way things are going right now, great resignation, layoffs, more stress, more anxiety. The one thing we have is ourselves in the present moment. And so when people say, how do I get into my intuition so I can make faster decisions? Sit still for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
How do I
be with that intuition?
Yeah. And it's so critical to be able to tap into that, especially for leaders, because it's already in us, right? And the tools we have are already in us, which is the most amazing thing about what I'm working with Unhustle is with the book is the practices are already in us and they're all free.
Right.
We just don't make the time for them.
And it goes back to the whole, like, sometimes we need the experts to point at those things and go, hey, remember that stuff? You have permission to go do that stuff.
You have permission to be human.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to be human. Breath work, I mean, it's a brilliant way to get centered in the present moment, to calm your nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Intuition, you already have it. You just got to be able to tap into it. So all these well-being practices that you read online, 7 ways to sleep better. Stop reading all the trends. Do what works for you,
Yes. And that comes from that exploration of self and trying some things and not just sitting around collecting all the hacks that are going to get you there, because ain't no hack.
The only hack is you.
I'm not a supporter of the hacks. I'm a supporter of doing the work and exploring it and figuring it out, because that's how you're going to build your foundation for what you want in the long term, right? And from what I'm hearing here today with you is put the work in to sit and be quiet, to regain that playfulness, to go connect with the things that spark you that joy, that fun, and have that in that leisure time, and being able to figure out how to pull some of that into your work time as well, because it's all just you at the end of the day. It's work you, home you, same you. You need to pull that foundation forward.
Amazingly enough, because you want to speak about leaders and companies, which is what Unhustle gears towards as well. The firms that slow down to speed up increase their revenues by 43% over 3 years. So it's based on a Harvard Business Review data. So it's working. When people feel better, they perform better. When leadership has a clear, what burnout means? Burnout means not the definition or the symptoms, but a lot of people seek clarity in the work that is given to them.
Yeah.
We just don't have clarity. So clarity comes from sitting still for 5 minutes. Clarity comes from, making time to actually think about the priorities. So yeah. I think we beat it over the head.
I would agree.
But, productivity hacks, time management hacks, open floor office hacks, biohacks. I mean, all of these things are great, but the only hack is you.
Yeah. I agree with that. 100%. Well, you know how I said at the start of this show that we were going to hit that 40-minute mark, and we're just about there, and I want to be respectful of your time. We've circled through a lot of things today, and I think there's a lot of value people can get from this conversation. So before we hit our last question of the show, is there anything, an opportunity here to to spotlight the stuff that you're going on. You've mentioned a book, and when is it coming out? What's the magic behind the book?
The magic behind the book is to show people how they can unhustle. When is it coming out? Hopefully in fall. And something that I'm currently doing that I'm really excited about is I'm going to launch a pilot program with probably about 20 people to take them on a 6-week journey through the book as well as through the unhustle practices. It's called Build Without Burnout. And it's going to end with an optional 1 week in Baja where they can put all the practices to test.
Oh, very cool.
So some transformational experiences. And I'm actually currently doing that. So if anyone is interested, I'll be launching the program in August, but they can go to unhustle.com/waitlist and show up their interest, and I'll follow up with them on details. If they want to see how companies, leaders, and companies are putting Unhustle into practice, they can download my free ebook in the process, which is at unhustle.com/ebook.
And that's down in the description down below as well.
Perfect. And there's a burnout self-assessment test on my website at unhustle.com. They can see how burnout they are.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for providing those resources. The program sounds amazing, and I bet a lot of people are going to get a huge amount of value in being themselves for a little bit and being able to put that into practice at the end of that program as well. All right. So before I let you go, one last question. We're going to hop in my time machine. We're going to go ahead into the future by 10 years. When we open the door, what is future you going to say thank you to you for?
Well, hang on. What future I'm going to say thank you to?
So what is future you going to say thank you to you for?
Oh, for sticking it with Unhustle. Yeah, for inspiring millions of people around the world to change how they live, work, and play, and for sticking it through it, because as every entrepreneurial journey, things are up and down. And so, for just sticking with it.
That's awesome. I love it. Sticking with it seems to be a bit of a theme that has come up from that question in some shape or form. So definitely, for all those that are watching, stick with it. Your future self is going to thank you for that. And to everybody else that has watched, thank you so much for watching LiveCast Conversations With. This has been episode 99. Tune in next week for episode 100. Thank you, Milena, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Gene. It was a pleasure.
All right. Talk to you everyone soon.